a brief comment on this whole question of using a sonnet, for instance, to do radical things?
Yes, so getting to be radical and experimental in writing poetry and at the same time using a traditional form, it might seem that there's contradiction or tension in that. But the thing is that your experimentation has all of the accumulation of that tradition, everything that's been done in that framework behind it. If you invent your own form, which people do, George Herbert can make up new forms each time.
Concrete poet in a way,
yeah,
right?
I mean, that gives you certain possibilities.
Sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah.
for those who don't know Herbert, what's a classic example of one of
like
his concrete
Easter
poems?
Wings or the altar.
So the thing is shaped like wings.
Yeah, in the shape of what these poems
This
are.
is the kind of stuff you like to do.
Yes, some of it.
Some of it.
But even when you're writing a sonnet, for instance, particularly when you're writing a sonnet, rather than inventing a form of your own, you're in conversation with not just the particular form, but the entire tradition of the sonnet. So when Donne has a sonnet that's, that he writes that's not about love between men and women, but it's about love between humans and God, right? That's a conversation with the tradition of the sonnet being engaged with love. And then when you go further and ask, well, okay, so Mackay's writing a sonnet raises the question of how is this poem about love, right? And it is about love. It's about kinship, and that's an aspect of it that's a different type of love than the sonnet has been about in the past. And then when you go on and hear a sonnet by like Terence Hayes, and his sonnet, I'll just tell you the first line, we slice the watermelon into smiles. That's actually the second line also, and the third line, and the fourth line. Actually, that's every line of the sonnet. That's all 14 lines of the sonnet.
So that is an experimental sonnet in which Terence Hayes is, to say the least, having a go at traditional sentiments.
Yes, but I think Terence Hayes' "we" in that poem has to also take into account Mackay's "we." It has to be part. There's a tradition of the sonnet, and there's a tradition of what's been said. So in a way, I actually see, and it also has to take into account something about love. I mean, there is. You might say an ironic or sarcastic or parodying or sort of biting commentary in a certain way, but it's also about people having a picnic and there is an element of love and the kinship
Interesting.
that we see in this.
Interesting.